All right. Hopefully this is on. Hello, everyone. It's Friday. Let's see who's here today. Oh, I almost hit the end stream button. I meant to hit the comment section. All right. How's everyone doing tonight? Sorry about that. A little delay on that one. Apologize for that. Another Friday night is here. Uh, Good evening, Brother Jorge. Good to see you here as usual. I appreciate your time coming. So I hope you're having a good week so far. Uh, how is the weather? I have not asked you how it is up there. It's been incredibly nice down here. I tell you what, really liking the weather. Really enjoying the weather down here. Uh, what was it, 62 degrees yesterday? I don't know what it was today, but it felt like 62 today as well. I don't know what the temperature was today, but it felt nice. It felt real well. So I'm appreciative of the nice temperatures and nice weather. So um, yeah, so I don't know. We'll wait a couple minutes to see who pops in, but thought we'd briefly talk about King David, the movie, or King David, the movie, David the movie, or I forget what the title was. It was an animated film that came out. So I was interested to see how they would do this animated film. So I took the boys, my wife and I, to see the movie. Two reasons. One, I mean, they've never been in a movie theater before. One's 13, the other one's 11, but then there's been nothing appropriate in the movie theater. But we decided to take a whirl at this one, see what it looks like. And I'd already planned on a twofold here. I wanted to see the movie and then have them, in a way, critique or break it down afterwards to see if it was accurate to the scriptures. I think it's important to teach our kids at a younger age, or at some point at a younger age, to be able to see if something lines up with the scriptures or if there's a lot missing or a lot added and things of that nature. So thought it would be a great learning lesson at doing these, always matching things up with scriptures. And I'm sure you can pretty much guess that it didn't exactly line up perfectly with scripture. Was it G rated? I don't even know, to be honest with you. I mean, I assume it's automatically G rated. It's a cartoon. I don't know what the rating. Let me look at the. I'll look it up in a sec for a second. I don't know if it was G rated at all. I have no idea. I never looked at the rating of it. Let's see, David. Let's see. This is just goes to its own website somewhere. Oh, it's actually rated PG, which I have no idea why it's rated PG. It definitely is not a PG movie. It is. It would be less than a PG, and I'm pretty strict and stringent with that. So I'm kind of surprised it got a PG rating. I'm not quite sure why it would have got a PG rating. I don't think it qualifies for PG. I would have put it more towards G. So that wasn't the issue. Maybe because there was, I don't know, a battle scene and a fire, maybe. I can't think of any other reason why it was a PG film. I would have thought it'd been more G rated. But because there's no foul language in there, there's no cursing or anything like that. So I'm just looking at it now. It says PG. Apparently, it's an hour and 55 minutes long. And I tell you what, the previews are probably an hour and 55 minutes as well. That's what bothered me, actually, right off the bat, is I should have known better that they would have worldly things in there, but I'm watching, supposedly, I'm in there to watch a Christian movie, right? What do I see for advertisements? The movie Wicked, the Wicked with the Green Witch, and I'm guessing it's based on Oz, but some kind of weird version of it, and very evil stuff there. But that's in the previews. So a lot of previews for worldly stuff. I thought perhaps because it was a Christian film, maybe because Angel Studios is the one that made it. And I'm pretty sure Angel Studios is the one that does that TV program, The Chosen, which I will not watch. I've seen like pieces of it on the YouTube there, and just want nothing to do with that at all. But I was curious how this would pan out and what the movie would be. Um, they did take a Disney approach to it in certain aspects of it. So dancing with the world a little bit on the movie, as far as I'm concerned. It's some parts were accurate, some parts were not accurate. Maybe because of time frame, an hour and 55 minutes, it couldn't be more accurate. But the things that were there didn't make much sense because the scenes in the movie, things didn't happen that way. That I can recall. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know in one part there's a kind of an evil king for the Philistines who comes prancing out on a little horse and whatever. But there was no king of the Philistines in Scripture meeting up and talking with Saul in the middle of a field or anything like that. So, although I'm probably going to ruin some of this for you, I guess, but you read King David and First Samuel, so you kind of already know what the story is. But they took some liberties with it. When King David's anointed, the king, when they go out to fetch King David in this movie, nobody goes and fetches King David. King David just shows up with about 50,000 sheep behind him, and it's a comedy basically. I don't know, I have a problem with it. They're running through the home there, and so that wasn't accurate. They show the lion, but they don't show a bear because we know it's a lion and a bear. But they show him fighting a lion, or I'm sorry, he ran across a field and he, like, as if you're gonna tackle somebody, what you use your shoulder, and he just hit the lion into a ditch to save a sheep that was giving birth. There was a little girl, supposedly the sister. She was a weird, goofy one, but cute one. So again, taking a lot of the bullet points that Disney movies and Pixar movies and all that kind of stuff would do. So again, they followed that trend line to make the movie. It was more musical than I thought it was going to be. I was a little surprised. A lot of music in it. They sang quite a lot, which was very weird to me. I think their whole point is because the Psalms were written by David. They're like, oh, we have a license to basically make them sing in every scene. That was kind of ridiculous, but yeah, I will be honest with you. I'd probably never buy this and put it in our movie collection. I don't think I would because of the inaccuracies, and the boys and I talked about it after the fact on Sunday. And there was a couple of things that they noticed, and they thought, they're kids, so they think some parts are funny. The goofy, feminine little king of the Philistines riding out on a horse, and then someone carrying around a fish for a sword, and there's a lot of goofy stuff, and I guess that can be okay for kids, but I think when you're changing parts of it, that becomes a problem, because then a kid watches this movie and thinks that's how it happened when that's not how it happened. A lot of worldly Christians in the theater, I would think, I thought to myself, because it was an advertisement for Toy Story like 5, I think, and I hear a bunch of adults getting all excited back there. Oh, yay! And I'm like, wait a second, why are you excited for Toy Story 5? I mean, it was a cute film. I saw Toy Story 1 and 2 back in the day. What was that, 1995? I forget when it was, 1993? I don't even know when it came out. But I was a little surprised at that. Be excited about that. So, and the commercials, like I said, were unfortunate. There were a lot of commercials that, advertisements you would not think should be the beginning of a Christian film. I would have thought this Angel Studios has got pretty big money because of the whole Chosen series, and they're making big bucks off of that they'd be able to advertise more of their own stuff ahead of it. But and it's just worldly stuff. So, I mean, I personally, and people can do what they want, obviously. I'll go see it. Go see it. There's nothing offensive in there, even though it's PG. There's no swearing or cursing or anything of that nature. But it wasn't exactly accurate in the scenes that it did show. So, and it's a musical. I guess if you like musicals, that'll be good for you there. But I would give it a 2-star if I was giving anything for accuracy. The film itself was done well. The animation was done well and stuff like that. But I don't really look at all of a sudden I'm a movie critic. I just, to me, it wasn't as accurate as it should be. I probably would never buy it, like I said, and put it in our collection at home for the kids. But I guess they're trying and to get themselves in a movie theater. I guess that's good for them. But that comes from basically a ecumenical studio. So that's how I'm feeling with that one. Good evening, Brother Christopher. How are you this evening? Good to see you, bud. I was meaning to contact you. I was going to ask you in the beginning of the week or at some point we got to get together, and I forgot. I keep forgetting these things. Got to get up your way in your direction. But yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at. You can chime in on that one, but that was what I was going to briefly talk about with the King David, or I keep saying King David movie. It's just the movie's just called David. So I wasn't an overwhelming fan of this film, but I guess I'm a little different because I'm more. I guess I'm more of a stickler to accuracy. That's so. That's me. Like to stick to the accuracy and be more to the scriptures. And I'm also not a big fan of musicals. Interesting fact: the lead character of who plays David, the voice of David, his name is Phil Wickham. What was the crowd like? It was okay. Wasn't a lot of people in there. We were pretty early because I remember growing up and going to movies as a younger person. You got to get there early. You got to get there early, get the refreshments and the popcorn and all that stuff. So we were earlier than we had to be. I think they had to be 30 to 35 minutes, if not more, of advertisement before the movie even started. It was supposed to be at 2. And we didn't get out of there. Wow, obviously well after 4. We had supper late that evening. That's how long it took. So a lot of advertisements, but the crowd was, I think it was average. I would say there was, I'm gonna say maybe 3-4 families up behind us somewhere. 2 families in the same row as us on the bookends. We were directly in the middle, and maybe a couple families down below us in the movie theater. So not a ton lot. I don't think that's a proper verbiage. Not a lot. There was not a lot of people in there, but the 2:00 afternoon show, so not many people go that early in the day to see a movie on a Saturday. So there might have been more people at different times, later in the evening or something like that. But yeah, so what I was going to say, which is interesting, because I was looking up the lead character, Phil Wickham, or the lead voice of, he's a musician. He's a CCM guy. Ran with the crowds of, the likes of DC Talk and all those type of guys, Michael Tate, the modern CCM. So I was looking a little bit into him, which was really, really interesting to see his connection with the Jesus movement. I don't know if y'all know what the Jesus movement was or is, or it was, not is, was, but that was that whole Calvary out in California, the hippie movement with, what's his last name? Chuck something. I can't remember his name. It's not Chuck Swindle. What was his name? But anyways, that Calvary Chapel out there in California, and Lonnie Frisbee, Chuck something. I cannot remember that guy's last name. But I didn't realize the connection there because his parents, his mother and father, were singers, musicians in a band called Parable. I think the name is called Parable, and they were a band, one of them hippie bands or Jesus movement bands of the early 70s. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I think that guy Mike Winger on YouTube. I think he's also connected to the Calvary Chapel out there in California in some way. A different Calvary because they have different branches, but I think he's connected to that as well. But I thought that was an interesting tidbit there. That so I gotta assume because Greg Laurie is from that whole Jesus movement Calvary. So Greg Laurie's probably. I didn't look at producers. I should have checked it out. But he's probably put some money into the Angel Studios as well. I'm just guessing, just for the fact that Phil Wickham connected there. I don't know who produced. Like I said, I should look it up at some point, but I don't know who produced it. Well, other than Angel Studios, but sometimes you have producer, associate producer, executive producer, and other money that comes in from different directions. But I wouldn't be surprised if Greg Laurie has an investment in that because Phil Wickham being the son of some of his friends that were out of that movement at that time in that band Parable. I have mixed feelings about that whole the movement and some of the people out of there. I think there were some well-meaning people that came out of there searching for the truth, and obviously some got misled, but we see that today too. We see people searching for the truth and then they get misled for a while and get back on board and so forth. But I thought that was just one of those weird, interesting things. Something's always connected to something else. I always find you never know where you're going to find those connecting pieces, so to speak. So, Brother Jorge, how are your kids today? How are they doing? I hope they're doing all right. I hope you're having a good time with them and they're behaving themselves. I'm sure they are. They pretty much always are. You get good kids. That's a good thing to have good kids. Unfortunately, I had to stay home for 2 days. I was off Christmas Eve and Christmas. I was forced to take those 2 days off because we were closed, so I wasn't able to work. But I did. They were looking for volunteers to work today, which I did. I worked today. I got out probably about 15 minutes early, but because I was told it's time to go. So pretty slow day. We had 2 trucks come in, but I would have liked to have worked, but what are you going to do? It's funny because I had to get 2 boards I needed to put up on the wall, and I on Christmas Day, on December 25th, on Thursday, I was measuring them out, and turns out I need a smaller width to put 2 side by side, but Lowe's was closed. They definitely are good girls, yes. My youngest is turning 5 on Sunday. Wow. 5. I can't even remember which one. My wife might know which one I remember sending a birthday card to one of them. I think it was your oldest one we sent a birthday card to. I don't remember. And Brother Christopher, how are you doing? You got the same basic weather I got, so I'm not going to ask you how the weather is because you got the same temperature going on up there as I do. So in the same little, I don't know if we want to call it the Gulf Stream, but it's been pleasant. The weather's been nice, and this is what I hoped for when I moved to Tennessee. Middle, I still have a. So it was your middle daughter, okay? All right. I couldn't remember. Sorry, man. Well, in all honesty, it was my wife that sent it, not me. But doing good. Nice weather. Yeah, it is nice weather. See, you'd be the one to ask because you grew up basically down here. But this is what I was hoping for. This type of weather all winter long when we moved down here. This I can dig. I'm digging this type of weather. I'm on board with this kind of temperature. Love it every moment of that. But yeah, I don't. I've heard stories how y'all had the blizzard of 1993, but I've heard guys talk about how they were fishing in the middle of winter down here. So it sounds like it's almost kind of like New England in the aspect of it's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. It's just all of a sudden, you know. I don't know what the joke they would use down here for the weather, but I know back in New England when I was growing up, they're always telling me, you want to know the weather, look out the window, because that's how you figure out the weather in New England. You know, you keep a winter jacket, an umbrella, and shorts by the front door because you don't know which way it's going to go. It was 4 degrees this morning. You don't miss that? Yeah, no, I don't. It was 4 degrees this morning. Yeah, it was not 4 degrees down here. Let me tell you that right now. Wow. Yeah, no, that is exactly why I don't live up there anymore. That is, I mean, there are other reasons, but I mean that's a good one right there for good reason not to live up there for me. You know, when you get older, you get colder, you're a little bit slower, so you got to move down south. That's kind of, where everybody does it. You want to get that better temperature. That's why I came down 4 degrees. Oh boy, I don't even know what it is right now. Hold on, let me look at the temperature. It is saying right now it says it's 65 degrees. I kid you not, right now it's 65. This can't be accurate. My goodness, it's 65 degrees. It's 65 today. It's going to be 60. Wait, tomorrow's Saturday. It's going to be 75 tomorrow. It's going to be 75 degrees. I'm just looking at this weather over here on just the side weather thing that's on your computer. 75. Sunday, 73. It does get a little cold next week, though. 52, 37, 47. But I'll even take that over the winter weather. 4 degrees. Yeah. All next week, it's high 40s, low 50s. It went from maybe no snow tonight to 3 or 5 inches of snow. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. All of a sudden, it'll do that. And I hear Tennesseans say the same thing, like, oh, it's just the weather changes out of the clear blue 3 to 5 inches. Oh, I just missed Christopher saying it was this warm before the blizzard of 93. Listen, I don't want to hear any talk about no blizzard of 93. I don't know what the date was and when that hit, but down here, I don't know what the date was, but yikes. I'll take the warmth. This is what I wanted. This is the weather. But you got to tell me, I mean, did you grow up down here the way we grew up in New England that you just had no idea what the weather was going to be when you walked outside? I saw that part. 3 to 5 inches of snow. May. Yeah, there was not okay, I'm stumbling on my words. It was in May? Well, that happens up in New England. You get them in April. It's not uncommon to see a blizzard and a snowstorm in April. Brother Jorge can testify to that. I'm like, April? Yeah, we can get a snowstorm. No problem. Not an issue. I don't know if we've gotten one in May before. I can't recall any in the month of May, but it's possible. But it's still cold in May. Up north, I tell you what, it's there is no summer. Never know in Tennessee. At least the temperature lasts longer. The good weather lasts longer down here. It's these few months that we got going on now is when I've heard that that's the most kind of up in the air type of weather. You don't know which direction it's going to go. But at least you got all those other months. You guys down here get like 3 months of winter, maybe 3 months of winter. Up north, we get maybe 2-3 months of summer, of good weather, and it gets cold quick. I've seen April. Yeah, I've seen April as well, more than once. I don't recall May. Yeah, I don't either. I don't recall May either. But I've seen snow in April. We might have had it in May. I don't know. I'd have to talk to my old man about that. I don't know if he remembers seeing it at that time frame. This guy's got a date right here. March 12th, 19. Well, that's not May. That's March. That makes sense. I can see that happening. And well, there's still snow down here because when we had that cold snap, what was that, about 3 weeks ago, I think, down here? I think it was roughly 3 weeks ago. We had a little cold snap that one day where we had, it was, I think, 14 degrees. I was coming down 68, and I was coming from Sweetwater on 68. I thought I was on 411, but I wasn't. I was on 68, coming down 68 from Sweetwater, heading towards Tellico Plains. I wasn't going to go to Tellico Plains. I'd take a right there on the 411. But I can, as you're driving, you can see the mountains off in the distance, but you can see the top of the mountains, and you can see white on top of the mountains down Tellico up that way. That'd be the whole Cherokee National Forest. But it was beautiful looking at that up there, and yet the weather down on the ground wasn't so bad. I think that it was a couple days later. You could still see a little bit of snow up there, but the weather was fine. It was decent. So March is not unheard of in the winter up north. It snows quite. Yeah, I wouldn't even be able to count how many days in March that it actually snowed up there, but it snows. It snows. It snows in March. There ain't no doubt about that. I know tonight that I'm going to do my best to keep us on the limit. Hopefully I will, because we're going to get up early tomorrow morning. We got a busy day tomorrow, but we're trying to get up early to get out the gospel tracks tomorrow. We're going to hit the mailboxes tomorrow morning, so we're hoping to get up early enough to get that done. We had 3 feet a couple of years in March. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I mean, I don't. If you live in that type of weather, you don't even pay attention anymore. You just, hey, more snow. Hey, just another day of snow. You wake up, it's just another day of snow. Although there were a couple of years where we had very little snow, but it was bitter cold. It wasn't snow, but it was bitter. It was just really like to the bones cold. That's almost worse because of how cold it can be. Years ago, yeah. But yeah, so we'll get out tomorrow morning. That'll be great. I'm hoping we can get as many mailboxes as we possibly can in tomorrow. That's me excited because one of the brothers had sent me. Oh, excuse me. Oh, that's impolite yawning like that. I apologize. I'm all right, tired. Brother Jorge's known me. Well, Brother Christopher, you know me for a while. I don't get much sleep. I just go. I'm like, I've got to learn to get more rest because, me, I work all day like everybody else. And I come home, spend a little time with my wife, not much, but excuse me. And then I come out here and I get research done to prepare for, videos or whatever. Maybe it was the podcast, which I'll get that started up again. But I know that I guess as I'm getting older, I feel it because I'm just nonstop. Unlike, there are people who call themselves full-time preachers and ministers who get plenty of sleep because they don't work all day, so they're able to do all these things. But which I've said before, you can do and still work. If I was to do sermons every week, I don't think it's that difficult. I'm not the only one out there, but there's many guys out there who work and still put information out there. So if I can put out information on certain things and like the Westcott and Hort and still go to work, I think anybody can. That's why currently, this week we're going to go back to the church we've been going to. Although we have been a couple of weeks, I don't think you're obligated to go every single week to show appearances. But anyways, that's what I like about him. He does not get a salary from the church. He's an electrician, which is nice. I'm going to talk to a couple people there. I said before, hopefully I can, if God opens the door, then I'll be able to get into the prison ministry through them. because they just don't let anybody go in anymore. I don't know how. I guess somebody said you've always had to report to somebody, or you always had to belong to a certain church, or a church, not a certain church, but a church, to be able to go into the prison. So there you go. So we'll hopefully get that started, which is kind of funny because this came out of the clear blue. Because I think I've talked about this before on this channel. When I was up north, I talked about how I wanted to get into the prison ministry. I wanted to get into juvenile, and stuff like that. But the doors kept on closing, and nothing was opening. But then we ended up moving, so therefore, there's a reason why God closed that door, and it would appear that door might be opening again down here. We'll see what happens. I don't know I don't know if I'm suited for the prison ministry. I'm probably more suited to juvenile delinquents, since I'm a juvenile delinquent myself. I think that suits me better, but we'll see what happens there. But we'll see how that goes. There was something else I was going to bring up, and now I can't recall what that was. But there are a few people who aren't with us this evening, and that's fine. We hope they're doing well. I know some people celebrate this holiday. Some people don't celebrate this holiday. So it's one of them weeks where you don't know where people are going to be. I've made my stance pretty well. Actually, I've restarted writing the book on Christmas. Not a kid's book, but restarted that back up. I started a while ago with a lot of notes that I have. So started that back up again, and I think taking this year to get that done. I'll be doing other things, obviously, but I'll be working on that throughout the year, along with trees, a different aspect, a different look, just going through that whole thing, and Christmas time, and the birth of Christ, and the falseness of Christ, and when he was born, which is obviously not accurate. Even those who promote Christmas as the reason for the season also will tell you they don't think that's when he was born. I don't know how one can promote something, but that you don't even believe yourself. But okay. And I've heard people misspeak or say things that aren't true. And I've seen some good stuff out there about attacking Christmas and Christmas trees, but I think they do it from the obvious stuff, the same old things that everybody uses, which you won't find in any of my information. There's so much more information out there to debunk it, so I'll be going with that. I know that's going to make me the bad guy, and it's funny. I'm a bad guy among Baptists when it comes to that. And a lot of King James people as well, because of the whole Christian liberty situation. And I did write that brief book on it, The Truth About Christian Liberty. And I'll go into a lot more of that down the road. If you want a copy of this, by the way, I got 3 of them here. I want to order more. I'll send you one out. I know a couple of you already bought it a while back, and so I'm sorry that now I'm doing it for free. Because I don't mind making money off of them. That's not the problem. But I also feel above that, it's just important to get that information out there. We shouldn't always be charging for something we know. But I'm not saying one can't buy it either. So that'll come out next year. I'm really focused on getting that done. And that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers, but I don't know where the Bible says we're supposed to be, delicate and not hurt feelings. I think we're supposed to not go out of our way to hurt feelings. To me, that's different, because some people are going out of their way and they want to do it. I would say think wisely before you just open your mouth and start attacking people all the time. And it takes wisdom and discernment of what to say. People are just full full throttle, just want to attack and so forth. But I'm not, and I've never, I think people have misunderstood me. I've never attacked anyone who celebrates Christmas. I've never directly ever said that they're awful human beings, are going to hell, and they're worshiping Satan or anything like that. I've never said that. I think a lot of people just have misunderstood the history of it, and people say, "Oh, here you go, Stephen, the Roman Catholic Church." No, it's even worse than that. It goes further back, and we go to Egypt and so forth. But we can go through all of that. But that's definitely going to be in the book when it comes out next year. I'm really going to put information in that. I'll probably talk a little bit here and there about it, but we'll really, really be pointing out the evils of Christmas so much that there's no way that, well, I don't think there's a way that you could defend it, because there's just a lot of stuff out there that people kind of twist and talk around or omit certain things. Yeah, so we'll get into that. We're going to do all that down the road. We'll get into the Christmas trees. I think it's important. I think we have an obligation. Now, again, I am in no way at this point in time saying because you celebrate the Christmas day, you're going to hell. I'm not one who can send you anywhere. So, number one, I can't send you to hell. God's in charge of that part of it. But I've heard foolish arguments for it. I've heard foolish arguments of like, oh, well, I mean, you're against Christmas. Do you say the, days Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Oh, those are pagan origin. And to me, that's a silly argument. It's kind of a middle school argument at that point. Clearly, there's no way I can get out of showing up to work on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You know what I mean? So I can't tell my bosses, well, I'm sorry, I don't say those days, so therefore I can't come those days. Could I say, yeah, I'll be there on the 6th day of the 3rd month? Yeah, I can do that. Go through that whole thing. So I think because people want to justify what they do, they will say to you that you should be not doing certain things. Well, there are certain things, yeah, I agree. If you have the ability not to do something, then don't do it. I mean, we have linen sheets. We're blessed enough to afford linen sheets. Yeah, afford linen sheets because they're better for you. They're biblical, but they're expensive, which is crazy. But you can get cheap polyester sheets or whatever they're made out of over in cotton sheets or whatever over at Walmart for $20 because that's what most people can afford. We're incredibly blessed to be able to be in a position to have linen sheets. Can't afford a lot of other things, but so we can make conscious decisions that you're able to make. Why would you not want to eliminate all that you can eliminate? Again, you can't eliminate June. You can't eliminate October, November, December. So that argument that people have is just kind of, in my opinion, a silly argument because it's not. That's just trying to defend celebrating a man-made tradition based and steeped in ritualistic behavior of demonic paganism. So that's okay. I didn't plan on going down that road right now, but again, we'll get into all those things. But yeah, we talked, and we're going to talk about the movie. But anyways, that's a movie. I wouldn't go see it again. I think each person has to figure it out if they want to bring their children to see it. Again, there's nothing over like evil or demonic or anything like that in it. It's just not accurate. It's just not accurate to the scriptures and what they do show. And then there's a cave. And there's a whole thing in there. Oh, another part was when David cuts the part of the cloth off. It wasn't in the movie. Saul is just going up there to get out of the sun and meditate for a minute. Well, that's not why Saul went into the cave, but I guess they didn't want to go through the other part. They didn't cut the head off of Goliath in this movie. It doesn't even look like they insinuated it or even pointed towards it. So there's that. Then they had a giant man come down. You would have thought it was Goliath because there was this giant guy that comes down. He's bigger than the whole crowd, and like, oh, that's got to be Goliath. The whole ground shaking a little bit, And then it was the armor bearer. So that was a giant man. And then they had Goliath, which was just an exaggeration of height. I mean, this guy looked like in the movie he's like 50 feet tall, for crying out loud. So exaggeration there. So, but yeah, that's how that movie went. I mean, the boys enjoyed seeing a movie on a big screen. That was their first time, obviously, for that. The whole idea of eating popcorn while watching a movie in a theater was an exciting thing. So that was fun in itself. So you got that, but they do understand there were inaccuracies in the movie. So that's what we went over a little bit on last Sunday. We went into 1 Samuel. We're going into the books, but we decided to go back to 1 Samuel because we watched the movie, so we can read through some of 1 Samuel. We're going to continue to read through it and really break it down. So, and again, I think it's important to teach our kids to pay attention to these things and see if they match up with the Bible. I talk about my son Alex, and he does that when we've gone to church, and he's listening to the preacher, and he opens up to where the preacher's at, and he wants to see if he's reading it correctly and saying the right things. Because some don't, but it's important to teach them at a young age to be able to be alert, not just to take everything somebody says with and just as I hate to use this as a full gospel. As the truth, and they're saying it perfect, and there's no error, and we don't check and we don't worry about it. I said a long time ago, we always check our politicians, we fact check politicians and newscasts and banker, everything under the sun, but yet as Christians we never seem to fact check the pastors up in the pulpit or the preacher or even the guy on the internet. We don't do a lot of fact checking of that. We just assumed they're telling us the truth and they got to be on the up and up without really searching. So it's a shame that happens, but it does. But I will continue not to celebrate Christmas. To us, we had school. The boys, we homeschooled, so they had school both days, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Although they are off on next week, they're on vacation because they by design 333. There's no good movies. All our agenda. Yeah, most of them do have an agenda. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to argue that point whatsoever. And sometimes you don't even see the agenda. It's kind of slipped in unnoticed sometimes. But I think teaching my boys to see this and understand it and to break it down at a young age, I think it helps them not be blindsided as they get older because they're being taught now to analyze these things and see what's going on. But nice to see you by design. So by design, your name seems familiar, but I apologize. But we'll continue to, and that's the that would be the only movie we've ever taken to them in a movie theater. We've not brought in any other movies. So, but I was curious myself as how they were going to portray this movie. But I'm glad we did it because I think the boys learned something from this. They learned how to look at something and analyze it and see if it matches scriptures. The earlier, again, I'm going to repeat myself, the earlier we teach our kids to fact check and to compare things to scripture, I think the better off they're going to be long term. That's just my opinion. That's how I feel. That's how I'm going to roll for now. That's how I'm going to look at it and deal with that situation. But I think it's important. So, but again, I wouldn't recommend, like I said earlier, I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend buying it. I mean, everyone can make their own decisions. Obviously, who am I? But I wouldn't go see it. I thought there was again a lot of inaccuracies, and that's why I wanted. That's the main reason I wanted to go to see it. I've never seen these Christian movies in a movie theater. I want to see how many inaccuracies there may be, but you won't see us in a movie theater anytime soon again. So nothing wrong with that. Go on. My Catholic mother called a. I'm sorry. My Catholic mother called a anti-daddy agenda putting down masculine dads. I don't know what that really means. I apologize. I don't know what the anti-daddy agenda. I'm sorry. You're talking about society in itself, the cultural and propping up women in more powerful positions, like Princess Diana and all the goddesses that they worship back in the day. I'm thinking that's perhaps what you're saying. But masculinity, I think, is been misunderstood. Even us guys think of it wrong. Sometimes strength is strength, and dealing with, and hunting and all of those things, fishing and so forth, and fixing a vehicle. Masculinity also entails how to treat your wife and how to be loving and how to, raise children and take care of your boys as well. So, but I think the ads themselves, I think I just read the other day I think it was what Gillette lost like $9 billion or something like that. $9 billion during that whole how to tell men how to be men. They lost $9 billion. She said TV shows depicted dopey daddies. Yeah. So I'm going to go back a few years. This made me so angry. I don't know when it was. We were at my sister's house before she, disconnected from us over COVID and blah blah blah. She said that I believe in COVID. I don't believe in COVID, or I don't believe people are dying and getting sick and all this. And her son, my nephew, is he's an abomination. I'll use terminology for today. He's a homosexual, and one of those. From what my son told me, he found out that he was one of them furries, or not. I was gonna say fur babies, not furries. They identify as animals or something. But anyways, going back, this is going back a few years now. I was up there. And on the TV show, on the TV is a show called Peppa Pig, and the youngest child they had, a little girl, her name's Savannah. She was a cute little baby. Savannah was watching the show Peppa Pig, and it just continued made the father look like a moron, and the father was just an idiot in the show. And yeah, I mean, at such a young age, they're teaching children such horrendous stuff that the father's a moron, an idiot. You even see car commercials and things like that, where now they always get the guy looking like a moron, an idiot, and a dummy. And you have more and more. So when you push that agenda more and more, it's that whole brainwashing. It's no longer subliminal messages in the commercials anymore, or things like that. It's like right there in your face. Excuse me. So I'll read this real quick. They hired a woman for marketing who hated men. They were consulted not to do that ad. I'm assuming you mean Gillette. They still did. They didn't realize that men were their biggest buyers. Morons. I know I just used a word to talk badly, but I'm not talking about the brethren or brothers and sisters. I'm not putting them down. Which people, I've seen that happen, unfortunately. But yeah, it's been from day one. They teach these kids at such a young age, and because a lot of parents just put their kids, yes, Gillette, that's what I thought. Okay. they just put their their kids in front of these TVs, and they're not even realizing what's going on in the TVs. And that's been going on for now, I would have to say, a good solid, if not longer, but a good solid 20 years. That's what I've seen in the last 20 years, really just in your face about it, and a lot of things of that nature. Um, so that is a shame. That is just an awful, awful thing to have a little child watching this and looking how dumb daddies are. I'm like, man, it's rather sickening. Um, I was trying to think of another TV show I was thinking of, but I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, there was a time when you had male figures. You know, I think feminism. Well, feminism itself, we know, was the '60s. We can go back to suffragette, and we can go back to feminism starting when women voting and stuff like that. I'm not really talking about that, but the '60s, when that rolled around, and I always said '60s is a great time to look at because of the fact that people say, "Oh, it's a great time and century and an awful time." You had, great rock music and this and that, and I'm thinking, well, I think you're missing something else. You're missing the religious, spiritual shift in the '60s, the feminism in the '60s, everything attacking, uh, people, biblical, godly people are being attacked, but at a different angle. Some say they would consider the '50s the start of it, and I don't have a problem with saying the '50s, but '60s is really when I see it really push. When I was studying this a while back, that's when you see a lot of this. You look at the Vatican too. You see that you have obviously the peace movement, which is no peace at all, kind of like today. You have all that going on, but in the last 20 years, yeah, I've seen a lot of that. The male is the dummy. He's the idiot in there. Women are more powerful. And that's just straight up awful. Awful. Yet my mother loved the Honeymooners show. My mom was perceptive but hypocritical too. Ralph Cramden and Norton looking dumb. Burr with more mature wives. I don't know what but with mature. I think you mean but with mature wives. Yeah, and that's where your 50s is. But I think that that show has different dynamics. I think there's different levels of dynamics. I think people miss about that show. Obviously, a lot of people know that show was a turning point in realism, a more realistic view of relationships in that area in Brooklyn and Bedford-Stuyvesant and stuff like that, of how things actually were, because not every home was a Leave It to Beaver type of home. You know what I mean? So that show was trying to be a little more realistic. But I will say that the second part of that series, I look at old TV shows, old movies all the time. I find them very interesting, and I look for things that kind of predict in a way where a direction of where we are now. It just interests me. It interests me where that culture shift is and of TV or movies, or how things change and where they change. Doesn't always mean I'm a fan of something. I just love seeing how it works. But the earlier Honeymooners, when you do the research on it, the earlier Honeymooners were more of him being a very, very abusive man, a very much more angrier. And the original Alice, I didn't find to be all that bright. I think they made her a little bit dumber, or I don't want to say dumber, it's not the right, but less brilliant, not as mature as the person who, the one who played, oh my goodness, what is her name? I'm at a loss. I cannot remember her name. Ralph Norton. Oh my goodness. Trixie was the name of the one upstairs. Alice, that's the name. Oh my goodness, I don't know why I could not remember that woman's name. Allison was interesting because she was not the original one. The original one was actually kind of pushed out of Hollywood because she was accused of being a communist during that whole the whole time frame of McCarthyism and so forth, and Joseph McCarthy, all that. So she had been pushed out of Hollywood. But that was interesting to see how that was much different than the reboot, basically, that they put on CBS, which I found fascinating. Then in Andy Griffith, which is interesting, you see a bit of a feminist moving, kind of a twist in there. Was a twist of I'm trying to think of the right words, but I can see in Andy Griffith, as the show was going on, you can see a push towards feminism. I don't mind Don Knotts as Barney Fife being goofy, because every show always has like a goofy character. Sometimes there's a girl goofy character, sometimes a boy goofy character, like just a weird eccentric person. It's kind of part of the formula that they use for everything. Time tested. Make Room for Daddy, the Flintstones. Even I never watched the Flintstones. I know that's probably shocking to everybody. I never ever had any interest in watching the Flintstones. I just didn't. Although I have heard, obviously, it's the cartoonish version of the Honeymooners. I think everybody knows that. There was an older version than the Jackie Gleason. What do you mean by older? There was an older version of Jackie Gleason. There was I think it was a Cavalcade of Stars. Yeah, hold on, over here. All right, Dick Van Dyke. Dick acted dorky. Yes, he did. So we're talking a '60s time frame. That's what I'm talking about. How we're getting that. And Mary Tyler Moore, if I remember correctly, was she not the first woman to wear pants on TV? That was a big thing there. Mary Tyler Moore was the first woman to wear pants on TV, which people were kind of up in arms about at first, but people are always up in arms and they don't stick to it after that. The only person married on Andy Griffith was Otis. Yeah, I think Otis was. Yeah, I think he was the drunk. Yeah, he was the town drunk. Yeah, I believe he was. I think they made Aunt Bee look goofy, to be honest with you. I think Aunt Bee, that character, I think they made her look kind of dumb to me. That's what I see. I see that they had her dumb. So you have a woman who they treat as and ironic, probably because it's an elder woman. And what's the deal? The elder women are supposed to teach the younger women, but they put her in a dumber role, I think. So you have that. Yeah, I think that, like I said, when you say Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, that's kind of proving the point I was saying. So I appreciate that. That the '60s is pushing that. Another one of them Kawasaki Suzuki's just rode down the highway up there. Drives me nuts. So yeah, we see a lot of that being pushed. I see that in the Andy Griffith show. I see in the '60s going forth. So that was obviously in play at that point. Empowerment to women. They're trying to now go to a different audience. I mean, you got to think of, and we can consider the '50s because World War II happens. Now we have women in factories. Now companies are realizing, oh, hey, we can get women now to go to work. So now we're breaking apart the family at this point. Now we're destroying the family. Now, I mean, they're still single family homes, but now they're busting up a little bit. They're both parents are having to work now. Then you're opening up, third shifts now, overnight shift, because I blame World War II for a lot of that, because they found that they're able to do that. So women are now feeling empowered to go to work, and now we get out of that role of women are supposed to be staying home or rearing up the children. So that starts getting destroyed at that point in time. This is my This is how my view of it. No one has to agree with me, obviously, but that's what I see when I look at that. But yeah, again, I would say uh, Satan is in charge of destroying everything. But Franklin Delano Roosevelt with a lot of that, I blame a lot of things to that level because he was involved with a lot of that things that have happened. You have Bretton Woods Conference, but that's a whole nother thing. I've done podcasts on that before. So, but yeah, the 60s was definitely a push towards that. I think they're trying, but now the strong men are usually guys beating up other people. That's why I have a problem with what is that guy's name? Is it there's a TV show called Reacher? There's a TV show called Reacher, and the main character apparently is supposed to be a Christian. And again, I'll say this is a more of a worldly Oprah Winfrey, Joel Osteen Christian, as not so much. And his show is all violence. I think the show was basically based off a movie because I remember seeing this pop up in one of my YouTube algorithms about something about him being Christian or something like that. I'm like, all right. I says, I've seen his commercials on YouTube. And so I'm like, isn't he doing that TV show? So I looked it up and I'm like, this guy is nothing but violence. I looked in the show. It's all fighting and violence. I'm not a fan. Tom Cruise. What about Tom Cruise? Tom Cruise, the worst person on the world. Mr. Scientology himself. You're saying he was in that movie, right? Yeah, he did a movie, I think, called Reacher, correct? Yeah, I think I do remember seeing commercials for that back in the day. I don't know when that was put out. But you got these Christians who are just nothing but violence, but they're Christians. And that's happening all the time now. We're having things happen all the time, and they say, oh, I'm a Christian. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. Foul language, your mouth goes on and on. He was Reacher in the movie. Okay, so there's a movie called Reacher. Okay. I clearly have never seen it. I don't know the last Tom Cruise movie I've ever seen. I think I saw one of him in the 90s. I think everybody saw the movie Risky Business. I was a kid then. I was a teenager. I can't remember the last movie I saw Tom Cruise in. I've never watched the Mission Impossibles, although I did watch the TV show. I've seen the original TV show Mission Impossible. And no, I've never seen it. Again, you got the 60s. Man, I'm glad you're on here tonight. You're definitely helping me prove the point. I appreciate that. All these shows from the early 60s to late 60s. I think Get Smart started in black and white and turned to color. Am I incorrect on that? I feel like that's what happened. But again, proving that exact point, that is a huge, that's why I talk about the 60s is that big push, a turning point in this country to destroying men, except for, you get these action hero movies and stuff like that. But I'll be honest with you, look in the 60s as well, even the 50s, you got guys like Rock Hudson people looked up to. And he was a homo at the end of the day. That's I think he was an actor in the 50s and 60s, right? I think he died in the 80s. Let's find out. So, but you had a lot of, I like how people always say, hey, all of a sudden there's all these gay people and all this in Hollywood. I'm like, dude, they've been there for a long time. That's nothing new. He died in 1985, so he would have been an actor in the 60s and 70s. And there you go. So I'm not sure how we got on TV shows, but yeah, you have a lot of that that's happened. Now there's a TV show, Highway Patrol. If you look at Highway Patrol, which is in 50s, and if you can You can't find me a dim-witted cop or anything in that program, you know. And that was in the 50s. So you see the 50s still hanging on a little bit of that manliness, and then you turn into the 60s where now you've gone away from that. So the interesting thing about Highway Patrol, I like cars. I don't have any fancy cars or anything like that, but I like the old cars. And so I like that show because there's a lot of cool old cars in that TV show. But yeah, I'm like, you're starting that trend in the 50s and into the 60s. Addams Family very first TV episode had Gomez staunchly defending homeschooling of all things to talk to a truant officer. I've never watched that. I've always refused to watch that. Even years ago when I wasn't where I am now, I'm more scripture based than I've ever been. I'm far from where I need to be. But even then, I refuse to watch that kind of stuff. I just won't watch it. I didn't watch the Munsters either. They were 60s as well. I don't know when Addams Family came out. But you should make a good study on it though. Addams Family. See when that came out. 1991. Oh, those are movies. Let me click on Addams Family over here. 1964. So again, guess 60s. We're again in the 1960s. So by design, you should do a video on all these 60s TV shows. I'd love to do a video on that. I don't know that I have the time with everything else, but yeah, you can see the push right there. You see it, 1960s. You see it happening. Even Dragnet. Dragnet did not have any dorky characters. Even the partner of the guy's name is Jack Webb. I'm trying to think of the TV show name. The guy who created the show is named Jack Webb, and I can't remember because it was a radio TV drama or radio program drama thing before it was on TV. But even his partner wasn't a dimwit or anything like that. He just did goofy stuff and had some wacky ideas that were kind of fun. I don't want to call them wacky, but interesting quirks. But they were never portrayed as less than. But if you look at the reboot of Dragnet, you see it took a cultural shift. And then it was all about, trying to promote the Black community. And it was more political, in my opinion, the reboot of it. There was talk about drugs then. They were definitely firmly against drugs. But the first reboot wasn't the first original, which was in the 50s. I think it goes back to the 40s as well. Wasn't like that. Friday? I don't know what that means. Oh. That's the, I just saw the name. When I was just looking at Addams Family. That is a character on the Addams Family. Now I got to go backwards, right? Addams Family. Addams Family. Yeah, look up there. I'm trying to look up real fast if that's a character. Well, you can tell me if it's a character's name. I'm pretty sure that's the name of a character. Excuse me. My parents let us watch everything, but no Disney cartoons. The Mickey Mouse Club they let us watch, and I never could stand it. So I was banned from television. We were not allowed to watch TV in my house. We were also not allowed to use the phone. So my father had a lock on the phone, so nobody could use the phone, which to me is bizarre. but we couldn't watch TV either. We were not allowed to watch television at all. And we're going to get into the irony of that because the TV had nothing but evil on it. Okay, interesting. And I say interesting because fast forward to today, and he watches Sci-Fi Channel. I've walked in, I've seen him watching something called The Grimm Brothers. I don't know what the heck that is. Well, I know who the Grimm brothers are from fairy tales. He watches X-Files, Stargate, Sid Roth, obviously. He watches that Supernatural Sid Roth guy. Well, he used to. I don't know if he still does. But I find that kind of humorous. We're not allowed to watch TV because it's all bad on TV. And I'm watching this garbage. And yikes. Very strange. Very odd. He's one of them Pentecostal charismatics. Well, he was Pentecostal, then / charismatic. Now you have charismatics that are only charismatic and not as Pentecostal, but they have charismatic. It's a messed up situation. We weren't allowed to watch TV. So I didn't get to watch all that stuff. I didn't get to watch television. I never get to watch the TV shows that a lot of people watch. I watched them at friends' houses. Now, when I went to a friend's house, that's when I saw Transformers, G.I. Joe. I'm an 80s kid, so I grew up in the early 80s. So I watched all of that. So whenever I had a chance, I'm going to a friend's house. You kidding me? I want to go to a friend's house all the time if I can. We were definitely not allowed to watch any of that. We weren't. We only had 2 channels growing up. Only got to see reruns. All right. Well, I think, we had, I don't know what we had. I remember we had TV 38 because my dad would watch TV 38. And I watched TV 38 at friends' houses too. But we watched news because when Dad got home, he watched one of the news stations, ABC, CBS, NBC, basic channels. But we had the upper and the lower, and I know there was rabbit ears on it. I know that for a fact. So I know that. But yeah, that was an interesting time. It's funny how my dad didn't want us to watch TV, yet we always had a TV. Yeah, I wish we didn't have a TV as much, but I do like watching documentaries of different things and different takes on different parts of like Civil War or World War I, World War II, or the history of Tennessee or things of that nature. We had channel 6 and 10 from Knoxville. I guess you got to watch Cass Walker and his TV show. But yeah, we didn't have television. We weren't allowed to watch it because TV was demonic, and yet here my father is watching demonic stuff. We pray about it, my wife and I, but we just got to keep praying. I don't know how you can be absolutely an opposite of what you teach. He taught us as kids, or told us as kids, it's all demonic and evil, and bam, there we are. Then you have my mother as well. She didn't believe in television, and then she watched TV all the time as she got older. But she didn't watch the stuff my dad watched. I'll give her that. She watched other stuff. She was a big fan, and probably a lot of women of her generation. She was a big fan of Gone with the Wind. I remember as a teenager, I thought it'd be cool. I bought her a VHS deluxe set one time. I did say, yes, I said VHS of Gone with the Wind, until I realized how bad Gone with the Wind is after the fact and who the people are. I was like, wow, you learn things you wish you didn't know. But yeah, and then she watched TV as older, but she was a non-denominational person. She was originally Pentecostal church, and then she went to a non-denominational, which pretty much is she's had different Bibles. Hey, Brother Calvin, good to see you, buddy. I'm glad you're here. Greetings. Just got home. Oh, good to have you. By Design has got us down the rabbit trail of TV shows, and it's actually been an enjoyment so far. We've been having fun talking about how bad the 60s shows are. I don't mean that sarcastically either. I don't. Yeah, because the 60s did change things. There was probably a small shift in the 50s, but the 60s is where it really hits, is highlighting that women are on a different level, and women are allowed to be independent, and women don't need men, and all these things. So, speaking of Dick Van Dyke, I just saw that he turned 100 years old. Apparently, that man is still alive. He was an alcoholic. I remember watching, what was it, one of them Nightlines or something like that a long time ago, how he was an alcoholic and suffered being an alcoholic for like 20, 30 years. And he outlived his kids. Because I think he did a TV show. Wasn't he a doctor? And he had a son on that show. Then you have his brother, what was it, Jerry Van Dyke. He did that show, My Mother the Car. I personally have not seen that TV show. I never saw that program. I know that he was on a TV show called Coach. I have a lot of weird information in my head. But he was on that TV show Coach. That was in the mid 90s, I think that came out. Either early 90s, mid 90s, somewhere around there. He was in that show. And then, yeah, you had Mary Tyler Moore have the Mary Tyler Moore Show. You know, you had a lot of Marlo Thomas. You had a lot of now female-oriented programs because the empowerment of women through the whole women's right thing in the 60s, the feminist movement. So you had that happening, which really pushed into that era. So, and now, yes, we are at the point now where there's complete degradation of men on television. They're a bunch of morons, a bunch of idiots, and yeah, that's where they've gone. Amazing. And people will tell me, goes, oh, you're not for women having any kind of power, or it depends on what you mean by power. I think my wife is an incredibly powerful wife and mother of our kids, and rearing them and doing what she does. She does a great job. I think it's more powerful. I think a more powerful woman is one who lives by the Bible, by the scriptures. To me, that's an amazing woman. Women, and I've said this before, women go to work, right? And they work their 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever it may be. I don't know, whatever hours. Then they come home. Work is done. Well, when you're a full-time mother and a full-time wife and caretaker, and you're an at-home, stay-at-home mom, their hours don't end. They're going all day long. So they work more. They juggle more. They deal with more than a professional woman does. Yes, 1962-60 shift in American culture from which we have recovered. Never recovered. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, because I did a lot of studying on this back in the day. Always thought I'd put something together. I probably talked about it here and there, but never really put anything solid together. But By Design was pointing that out, of how the 60s TV shows, because I was talking about it, and it was great that he was there pointing, helping me point out the fact of how the 60s were that major change of talking down to men, and men are morons and idiots and stupid. You look at all the commercials, even football commercials make guys look like dummies. So yeah, we're there. Movies have been predictive. Airport, Towering Inferno 2, which when they hit the theaters, I was suspicious of them predictive. Airport is is that the guy? That's a comedy, right? I think the guy from Naked Gun there, Leslie Nielsen, is that the movie we're talking about? Airplane? Towering Inferno, I do not know what that movie is. I don't know what that one is. I'm assuming that came out probably late 70s. That's my guess. I don't know. I don't know that movie, so apologize for not knowing that one, but I never heard of it. At least I don't think I have. Let's. I'll as we're talking, I'll try to pull it up. But yeah, Airport, I am aware of. If that's the one we're talking about, yes, I have heard about that one. As we're looking at Towering Inferno. Let's see. Nope. I can tell you I have not seen this movie. I've not seen this one. No, Airplane was a comedy and Airport was a disaster movie. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and you just came in right after the fact, too. No, it's about crashing jumbo jets. I didn't see it, though. Yeah, I don't know about Towering Inferno or Airport. I did not see either one of those. Airport. It brings me up my nearest airport. Airport, the movie. I'll put it in the movie. Nope. Never saw this either. Dean Martin, I probably never would have watched it. Burt Lancaster, I know who he is. George Kennedy, I know who that is. Jacqueline Bisset, I've heard of her. Helena Hayes, I've never heard of. I've never watched that either, so I don't know what they're about. Crashing jumbo jets, apparently. Apparently, being predictive, they predicted the crashing of planes now. That's Airport. Towering Inferno, I don't know what that's about, so maybe I'll look that up now. Towering Inferno. I don't think I'll ever be watching it. I don't know. Let's see. What's it about? What's it about? All right. Let's see. It's a movie. Glass House, Skyscrapers. Okay. Apparently a building that got on fire, I'm guessing. As long as it's not Dante's Inferno. Well, So, yeah, I don't know about that. But, yeah, there was definitely a shift. And like I said, you had the Vatican. Vatican's not up there, but my Vatican stuff is up there. Vatican Council 2 and so forth. Car 54 TV show with goofy cops. Study Muldoon, Schnauzer. Car 54. I've heard of that. I've heard of that TV show. Yeah, that's that guy. That's the actor that played in that Munsters TV show. And again, what Car 54, where are you? 60, 61, 63. I got to write all these down because now this will make a great video if I get around to doing it. This would be a great video talking about the culture change. But yeah, Car 54. I've never watched it. That I never watched it. Al Lewis. Oh, wait a minute. He played in Munsters as well. That's kind of funny. I did not know that. Yeah, so there was again, there was definitely a shift in that time frame. And I've talked about this. The secular world, the movies were shifting. Religion, so to speak, it was shifting because of the Vatican Council II. We're now entering a stage where even more Bibles are starting. All these different versions are starting to come forward, like we got the 65 Amplified Bible, and you're rolling into that now. You start all of these things because, as we well know, in the Vatican Council II, it basically says to coexist and be on the same page with the Protestants and putting out Bibles. We have all that going forth in the 60s. It was, when people say it's a great time, we landed on the moon, rock music was changing, Woodstock. And I'm like, well, there's some other things you're not paying attention to and you're avoiding. I think they talked about Towering Inferno in my continuing education class. Really? Well, buildings, I guess you don't want it to turn into a Towering Inferno. More about needing to know what happens inside of the building and how it's being used, potential hazards. I guess they missed that part on 9/11, huh? I don't think they missed anything on 9/11. I think they know what they were doing. It's all right. That's a whole different conspiracy theory. Yeah. So just more ammunition to the fact that that's when we have that shift, which I've always talked about before. I'm really going to have to do a video on this one of these days. But yeah, the 60s is where it's happening. It's not just about, Vietnam. Vietnam was a big deal, but all these things are happening. A lot of people know that the Catholic Church was involved with the split of Vietnam. So they're involved in everything. But yeah, you can go on and on with more TV shows like that from the 60s. And again, Car 54, never saw it. I had no interest in seeing it. So someone had mentioned a recent Dave movie, Wednesday Night, Angel Studios. Oh yeah, we talked about that earlier, brother. We're talking a little bit about that earlier when we took the boys to it and broke down the movie. I've been talking to the boys, and we were analyzing it afterwards, just teaching them how to see something. And there was inaccuracies in that movie, no doubt about it. I would never recommend it. I personally, I don't think it's all that worth seeing. And was it a horrible, offensive movie? No. But I guess it can be construed as offensive because the inaccuracies of the movie, different scenes are even, never mind the stuff they omitted out of there. I get it. It's only an hour and 55-minute movie. But I was still bothered by the fact that during the previews, you're showing the movie Wicked. That still is kind of weird to me. So, but yeah, there were inaccuracies in that movie. The scenes, a made-up king of the Philistines out in the field prancing on a little horse. Yeah, so there was definitely some inaccuracies. The way that instead of going out to get David, nobody fetched David and went out to get him. David came with like 50 sheep running into a house. So they were creating that more about kind of a Disney aspect of it. They made the King of Philistines look like one of them goofy characters, villains. The people in the Israeli army were looked like a bunch of doofuses, in my opinion, in that movie. Instead of making them look, weaker, or didn't have as much weapons or this or that, they made them look like bumbling idiots. So that was unfortunate. So had a problem with that. But yeah, there was definitely some inaccuracies there. When he went up to the cave, he was trying to get out of the sun, and then where David cuts off a piece, it wasn't for the same reason. Saul was just sitting there hanging out. My altar boy priest was the first fatality in the rescue teams on World Trade Center Ground Zero, New York City Fire Department. Yeah, what a terrible time that was. I don't know who else watched it live. I saw the second part of it basically. I was asleep because I work overnight shift. At that time, I was working overnights, and an old friend, an old acquaintance of mine, he's no longer with us. He committed suicide, but he calls me up, and he's yelling, "Steve, it's World War III. It's World War III. Turn on your TV. It's World War III." So I'm like, "What are you talking about, Dave?" So I was like, "Dave," I see Dave Hunt. "What are you talking about, Dave?" And he says, "It's World." I'm like, "All right, whatever." So I turn on the TV. And I'm watching for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I see the second airplane hit, and I'm like, "What is going on?" Yeah, I was just, it was that was a crazy day. I think if you were alive in that time frame, yeah, it was a crazy day. I was up for the rest of the day, probably like everybody else, just glued to the television until I got to work that afternoon. Because I used to work, I get into later on that night. Dave Hunt, or rather T.A. McMahon of the Berean Call, was a screenwriter in Hollywood for years and does not believe a biblically accurate can be or has ever been made. I don't know who T.A. McMahon is. So I'll look into who that is. I don't know who that is. Shock to me was he confessed to be homosexual but never gave into it. So my uncle Doug was a priest up in Vermont, and he was a homosexual. He was an abomination. And I've told the story before. My father's friend in high school went off to be a Catholic priest in the seminary. Remember, it's the 60s. Being Catholic was pretty popular. And he came back, and told my father that basically, in a nutshell, they were pushing homosexuality at the seminary. So when people tell me, which really irates me, because having an uncle who was a homo that was a priest, you have people today go, "Oh, that's a new thing. That's a new thing. That's a new thing." No, it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing at all. You explained to me how they were pushing it then in the seminary. I'm not going to sit here and tell you every single Catholic seminary was pushing it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying those are two cases that I know of. I wouldn't say I'm personally connected to the second one as my father's friend from high school, but that's two people in a small, tiny world of my world area, or whatever you want to call it. That's two. You know it's more than that. And you know it's more. When 60-year-olds are coming out and saying that they were molested, how could you not know? How could you not realize how evil the Roman Catholic Church is? Sorry. I was in first grade. I didn't think it was a big deal. Well, you're in first grade, so it might have looked like a TV show to you at first grade. I don't know. Yeah, it was a heck of a day. Now I'm old enough too to remember the fact that I watched the space shuttle as well live when that happened, because when I was in school, and a couple people might be older than me. By design, sounds like he might be a few years older than me, and I know Calvin's a tad bit older than me. But I watched the what was that? The Challenger, right? Space Shuttle Challenger, when the teacher went up and it blew up. We watched that in school because, like all schools, because they wanted to promote a teacher, blah blah blah, going up, and watch that explosion live. I remember having a crush on a girl that I found out was a Jehovah's Witness. That's a whole nother story. But anyways, Father Michael OFM, lots of vids on him. He was friend of the Clintons. Well, that says a lot. Oops, Father Michael Judge, huh? Michael Judge, okay. From what Scripture says, and I believe there's nothing new under the sun, Ecclesiastes. I'm 75, but then you would be a bit older. I'm 51, 52, 51, 50, 52, 52. I'm 52. Wow, it's pretty sad. I had to do the math in my head. Yeah, I'm 52 years old. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and did see it live on TV. It was a crazy time, man. It was something to see. Are we talking at the Challenger or 9/11? Because I was 9/11. I was in Leominster, Mass, and Space Challenger. I was in Fitchburg, Mass. What did the teacher do as soon as they saw the explosion? I don't remember. That's kind of funny. I remember it wasn't too long. I mean, they shut the TV. I remember after a few minutes or so, shut the TV off, rolled it out the door. Well, back then the TVs were on there were two platforms. There was so the VCR would have been on the second shelf, or the shelf below, and the TV would have been on the top, because TVs were clearly bigger back then. So yeah, I remember her just, after a short period of time, I think she just walked over, shut it off. I remember going back to my class, and nothing was said about it after that. It was weird. They freaked out. So down in your area, they freaked out. I was in Church of God school. Okay. You were in school too, Chris? Well, yeah, Chris is roughly my age. Yeah, that was an interesting time. That was an interesting time. Clearly, there were things that I didn't see and that happened before me. I wasn't around for the landing on the moon, or JFK assassination, or MLK assassination, or anything like that. I wasn't there for that. Yes. Yeah, he was. Bush Jr. was in the school classroom when it happened also. Man, schools are awful. They're evil. I tell you what, everything connected to them. Yeah. And that began the whole conspiracy of I'm not going to say true or not true because we can go get in this whole big thing probably. But yeah, I remember they felt like he knew at that point in time. And, there's a lot to say about a lot of that stuff, but yeah. Oh, wow. Well, you're really pushing Brother Calvin up there. But he probably would have been. I'm not gonna guess. Now, Brother by Design, though, he would have been around for that. He definitely would have been there for that. That was a time for him. That was definitely he would have seen a lot of that stuff. Being 75, so that means he was probably born in 1955 or something like that. So he probably would have had a brief memory of that. That was a wild day. I could only imagine what that was like. I mean, your president was shot and killed. And then obviously Donald Trump, that would have been for some people, that would have been a big deal too today because, a president being shot at and almost killed as well. Oh, yeah. I was in Miami. It was required by my parents. What was required to be in Miami? To have the Cuban coffee? I know you guys. I know you two. You like your coffee. Miami. I ain't been down to Miami. Never been to Miami. My brother's been to Miami, but I have not been to Miami. I haven't had a lot of interest to go to Miami. I guess it would be just to go to the bottom of Florida would be neat. Other than that, I've not had a lot of interest in that. A lot of things happened. The last 40 years is more tragedy than the Civil War, I feel like. I mean, you got the Fauci of NIH who came to power. The start of AIDS. AIDS happened under his watch. That was under him. Moon landing. The moon landing. I did not watch the moon landing. Another conspiracy. The moon landing. Let's see, 9/11. Got a lot of conspiracies out there. I used to be into a lot of that stuff way back in the day. Way back. I mean, got to go back a few decades when I was into a lot of that stuff and looking at a lot of those things. There are things that people don't even know. My favorite thing is one of the weirdest things I think I've ever found out is that Hillary Clinton's brothers were in the walnut trade business with Russia. I learned that years and years ago. Nobody really talks about that. That's an interesting strain of information, I guess. The moon landing. Who do they say that filmed it? He was a Hollywood director, wasn't he? Oh, man. Stanley Kubrick. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the guy that people say that did the actual recording of the moon landing, and the moon landing was fake because they could tell because it's his style of directing or something like that. I never got too deep into that one. Yikes. But I am thankful tonight for By Design. In fact, I think you've been here before, By Design. I'm pretty sure I've talked to you before. I feel like I'm getting to the point where my memory fades sometimes. Kubrick was a strange one for sure. Yeah, didn't he do that like cult classic in the 70s? Some I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. Yeah, I can't remember what the name of the movie is now. That gets the flat earthers excited. I keep on wanting to. I haven't. I was gonna try, and I don't like ordering too much stuff online. Brother Jorge knows that about me. I don't like to go online to order too much. But I'm gonna have to get a small globe. I've been looking around the thrift stores for a small globe, so I can put a small globe over here and put the flat Earth at the same time, just so I can. I know it's not the right. It's kind of not nice. It's me to get people confused like that. I go, wait a second. Got a round Earth and flat Earth, but I'm just having, come on, have fun with it. Yeah, Clockwork Orange. That's it. Thank you. I couldn't think of what it was. Clockwork Orange. That is a movie I've never seen. I've heard about it. I have no. I've heard of the premise of it, but I'm not going to watch it. Well, clearly not going to watch it now. I'm at this point in my life, obviously. But I like trying to find these. I like watching old TV shows. There's a lot more to just, by the way, and again, we do learn about the feminism and the shifting and destroying men. But you learn a lot of other things at that time frame. A lot of things I find interesting. Just the car manufacturing from that time frame, our dress back then. Just a lot of things were different. The professionalism. There was more professionalism, let's just be honest, dress-wise than there is today. I think that's why you got the whole hippie movement changing that. I never watched. Yeah, neither have I. No interest to watch it. So it was before my time, I guess you could say. I was probably a kid, or a little kid. I was about that big, roughly that big. That's how big I was when that came out. I was roughly that big. Yeah, the 60s, boy, I'm glad we talked about that because that really was a push. And I always talk about the religious shift with the Vatican and the coexist movement, basically, is what that is. It's really everything is coming to a crazy, crazy time. That thing's the people on top of 1971. I'm guessing that's when it came out, 1971, Clockwork. Right. 2001, A Space Odyssey, Kubrick film. All right, so I did watch some of that before. That was on TV once, and I was watching some of it a long time ago. It was on one of them late night TV movie shows, channels or whatever, way back. I was a single man back then. And I remember starting to watch that, and I never did finish it. I don't know what happened. I probably had some friends come over, and I just didn't end up finishing watching it. Yeah, me too. My brain works faster than my fingers, hence all the mistakes in comments. My brain works so fast that I'll stumble sometimes on my words because I'm here and I see 3 thoughts ahead and I'm kind of jumbling them and something pops into my mind. So that happens for me when talking. I like watching the old construction videos. The tradesmen dress nice. They did. You know what? I subscribe to a channel called Periscope Films, and the reason I subscribe to it is that's when, I don't know if you guys saw my video. I think two of you did, I know of, but when I did that video on that Freemason Catholic, that little propaganda film that I did, which I don't normally do things like that I commented on that little short film there. It was like a 10-minute. Well, it was longer than that, but I picked only like a couple minutes of that propaganda film. But they got a lot of old stuff on there and commercials or Hoover's Dam and, things of that nature. Just different things, old aerial flight things. And I find some of it to be interesting. Not all of it, but some of it. I even find old commercials back then very interesting, how pre-60s, post-60s and such that change there. 1968, but yeah, no, I knew that was a much older one. I don't know who was in that movie, but I think it was known for. I could be wrong, but I think it was known for that a very popular tune. I think the intro, if I'm not right, is a popularly used music score. I don't think it was by John Edwards, but he's one of the names that always pops into everybody's mind. John Edwards, the composer. But I'm not sure if it was him or not, but I like the 1950s Drywall Man videos. I don't know that one at all. Yes, they did dress much nicer back then. Now that you mention it. Yeah. And I believe in dressing to a certain level. I've changed my views a little bit now on dressing. But I grew up in the Pentecostal church, right? The Assembly of God. And, everybody's wearing a 3-piece suit and stuff like that. And very stuffy, very holier than now attitudes, better than everybody else. And I've always not liked that. And I've had to dress nice and stuff like that. And so for me, I did rebel against that, and then I'm like, oh no. I started to take the view of the Jesus movement, really, of hey, dress however you want. God loves you, whatever you're wearing, and all that. And yes, God loves you no matter what you're wearing. But we just decided to go away. But then now I've changed that mentality in the latter years, and realizing as I got older and more mature and more understanding, I've realized why is it okay for us to dress nicely or put on our best duds? Let's so like if you work in an office, right? You're dressing up for the office, right? You're not rebelling, are you? If you were against the clothing, you would not be of that nature. You would be dressing down if you were really against it. I'm trying to think of the right words. Again, I'm stumbling as I'm thinking and I'm looking at the side of the comments at the same time. But as I got older, why would we not give God our best, right? Yeah, he knows who can dress a certain way, but not everybody dresses the same. But giving the best that you have, why is that bad? Now, I went with the whole Jesus movement idea. I didn't know who the Jesus movement was when I rebelled, clothing-wise. But but the difference is here, people felt obligated. People were obligated to dress a certain way, and they made you feel obligated and made you feel less of a person. Now, if you like to dress up, then dress up. Wear your best duds. But I think you should be, if you're wearing your best flannel shirt and your best blue jeans, and again, that's really a rural country southern thing. Put on your best blue jeans, you put on your nice cowboy boots. I'm not being sarcastic, but you would put on, that's what you had. You didn't have three-piece suits all the time, but you put on your best jeans. Your mama would part your hair, wet it down, but there's nothing wrong with that. And I've gotten to the point where I'm back to being an old man, I guess, now, because I believe you should be dressing the best that you can for the Lord. So I've shifted away from that. And so I've seen both sides of that fence. And for me, it doesn't mean I'm going to wear a suit every Sunday going to church. It just means I'm more apt now to wear the best that I have. I wear my worst at work, is what I did. I wear my worst at work. Yes, they did dress much nicer back in the day. I already read that, sorry. And not just blue collar, but all around. Yeah, that's true. No wonder why you are not a Baptist, LOL. Yeah. But we say Baptist, but the Pentecostals were that way too. I mean, hey, well, you grew up, I think, a little bit Pentecostal yourself. Remember back in the day, you go to them churches back then, they were dressed. They were dressed. And they had their three-piece suit on. They had a suit and tie on. That was even common just in regular day life. You just look at people, they all wore a suit jacket, slacks, shirt, tie. A lot of them just dressed that way. It wasn't like just only a religious thing. It was more professional dress. People try to look good. I dress with button-down collar shirts, no hoodies or t-shirts, nothing fancy, but I do want to look professional. There you go. Church jeans, yes indeed. Yes indeed, Brother Christopher, church jeans. You put on your finest church jeans. That's what I'm saying. I got whooped if I didn't dress up for church. I didn't get whooped because I didn't have a choice. I had to wear what I was told to wear going to church. So at that point in time, I just wore what I wore. But I didn't have the best clothing or anything like that. But my mom made me wear my best. I mean, I still remember these just ugly blue corduroy pants that I had to wear. That was one of my Sunday pants. It was my blue corduroy pants. So ugly. I remember my mom had this, I kid you not, I had a picture of it at some point, a yellow and brown velvet shirt. The 70s were not kind to children, let me tell you. But we dressed, and I didn't ever feel obligated. I just grew up like, Mom made me wear my pants, got to put them on. My shoes, though, my feet always hurt. I couldn't wait to get my shoes off when I got home. That was the first thing. I would throw them shoes off as fast as I can. They killed my feet. Probably because they came from Kmart or Payless. My area was financially challenged when I was growing up. Yeah, but you wore, but see, that's the beauty of it, though. is you guys still wore you had that one pair of jeans. You had the church jeans. You had that was still your best pair of jeans that you went to church in. You gave even the poor folk, and I'm using a bad terminology, I know, and I'm not meaning by any disrespect, because we grew up not so great ourselves, but they still had their best. Their best may not have looked like the other best, because there's different levels. But and you just said it. You just said it. There you go. But you wore your best, because you want to give God your best. We're not teaching that anymore. We're not teaching give God our best anymore. We're teaching, God's fine with the way you are. Yes, but so with that terminology, then it's okay for a woman to show up in a miniskirt. I've seen this at a church. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. No, it's not perfectly fine. But that's the same term. You go, don't worry about it. When the pastor's wife is wearing jeans at church, is that good? I'm against it. I'm against it. I'm 100% against it. That's where I would stand on that. Growing up, even being poor folk, Mom would buy my sister and I new outfits every year for Easter. Yeah, yeah. We all dressed up on Easter. I think we all dressed up a little extra on Easter. I remember, and the same thing. I don't think this changed anywhere. I think Baptist, Pentecostals, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, Church of God, hats were always involved with the elderly women. Always. There were hats. The hats. That was a thing. But men wore hats way back in the day. But I remember, now, I don't know if y'all remember Miami Vice. Now, I was a teenager now. So I bought, because we had to wear white and pink, because that's the Easter colors, right? So I got the white suit and a pink shirt like Don Johnson did. I slicked my hair back like an idiot, just the same way. What a fool. But anyways, good enough. The miniskirt, that's why I call modern churches the club. And here's the funny part. This miniskirt was at a Baptist church. It was at a Baptist church. All right. It wasn't even at a Pentecostal church. You would have thought I'd say non-denominational, but it was at a Baptist church. And I'll tell you, that Baptist church was not in the King James Bible. They were actually in the NKJV. I'm just saying. But that pastor's wife was wearing just a pair of jeans on Sunday. She was wearing a pair of jeans and a shirt. Like, what? And this was supposed to be a Baptist church. I'm like, well, it's not the Baptist church I would have ever thought of. So, and they were also NET. So that pastor was a big fan of the NET, because I think he went to, wasn't Tennessee. I think it might have been Tennessee Temple. But I want to say it's out of Indiana. I can't remember. But he's using both the NET, the Net Bible, which I got up there, and the NKJV. Those were his two, and he was a big fan of the Net Bible. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't last long at that place. 1980s hurt my head. It was a heck of a year. Decade. I've never heard of that long before, but it's fitting. Yeah, the club. Yeah. Even the music is the club. Yeah. Pants and long skirts from my church growing up. Yeah. And I know I'm gonna get mad. Here's where I kind of look the other way, and who am I to judge it? We're gonna hear that all the time about slacks for women. There are a lot of older women in their 80s and so forth that wear slacks and 70s. But I've also seen a lot of women. I was at a church down here when I first got here. We don't go there anymore because the whole Easter thing really bothered me. Not Easter bunny, but Easter egg hunt. I'm like, I had to call. I'm like, nope, we're done. But anyways, this woman had to be 90, and she was wearing her dress. She had a dress on. So, I mean, the older crowd still knew how to do things right. That's just all I'm saying. Pants, long shirt, puncher. That a southern can of worms. Southern can of worms. But yeah, I've more now leaned towards the fact that we should be dressing our best. I did that whole thing, like I said. I'm like, oh, I'll dress the way I want, but you can't. You can't. I don't have a better word for it. You can't. I tried wearing shorts one day on a hot Sunday. My dad didn't let that fly. Nope. You don't wear no shorts. Still gotta wear your pants, man. You don't have to wear your suit jacket now, but you gotta wear your shirt, t-shirt, your shirt, tie. Well, you don't have to do a tie. I don't always do a tie. I haven't worn a tie in a while. I used to be a tie guy way back in the day, but I do have a couple of ties. But yeah, you gotta wear pants, buddy. Sorry. Gotta get a whooping now. By the way, in your recent Westcott Horror video, I never knew that the language of the subscription was missing in all modern versions. Yeah, they are. They're in. I think I still. The interesting thing about that is this is the NRSV, which is a Catholic Bible, and here's the Jerusalem Bible, Catholic Bible. Obviously, I have other ones up there, but it's also a lot of those match up. I'm actually thinking about adding on to the Westcott Horton, adding the Catholic Bibles as well. Other than the New American Bible, which I already have in there, and the RSV Catholic edition. But yeah, they all have that missing from the. I never knew how many there were. I knew a lot of them were, but there were others I didn't realize that were, and I would have thought they would be there. So I was a little surprised at a couple of the ones that I found that didn't have it. I was like, oh, that surprised me, but it didn't surprise me because I already knew 90% of them didn't have them. I just knew that already. But I think the other part I found, what I tried to point out in that video was the fact that people there's a debate, or I've heard people talk about that it should be Aramaic and not Hebrew. So it should say Greek, Latin, and Aramaic. But Hebrew is correct. And if you watch video, obviously, you know why I feel Hebrew is right. It's really I think it's profound, really, the fact that putting that up the way it is, going after the authority of man, and you're crucifying the real authority. This is at them. It wasn't to the people. It wasn't to the everyday people. It was to the elite, the priests, the scribes, the emperor guards, the authority levels, all of them, the Greek authoritative philosophers and stuff like that. So that's how I see that. And I think it's, man, the Bible is awesome. Things are not done by mistake. So to take that out, to have that missing, I think is just mind-boggling that you would take that out. You would think at least if you wanted to, you would change. I could see them changing Hebrew to Aramaic, but they didn't even change it. They just took it out. So that was amazing how that they even went that route, because Aramaic would have been spoken at that time as well as Hebrew. Actually, I think Nick was just talking on his video about that there was somebody saying that people say they didn't speak Hebrew then, the Jewish people. Well, you have to define who they're talking about, because Hebrew was spoken. Aramaic would have been spoken from the everyday people, but Hebrew was well known for the liturgy, was what was really the priests and the scribes, the Pharisees, those who killed Jesus. So the whole Aramaic versus Hebrew argument is something I do not understand either. Why can't people just believe the word of God? Yeah, I don't know. It's because Jesus spoke Aramaic. So Aramaic was spoken in the region. Yeah. There's no argument to that whatsoever. But I think, like all things like Latin, and I think you would point this out as well as I did in one of the videos, is there's different types of Latin. There's classical Latin, there's ecclesiastical Latin, there's Old Latin. There was different styles of Latin. Now, the Latin spoken by the Roman soldiers, the lower, would have been vulgar Latin. So they would have spoken vulgar Latin, and then the higher ups would have spoke regular Latin. They would have spoke regular Latin, lack of a better way of saying, call it classical Latin, whatever. So you have the vulgar down here, Latin. And that's why it doesn't say on the cross vulgar Latin. It's Latin because it's directed at that authority. And there's a reason why it's not Aramaic, because it's not directed at the little people. it's attacking the elitism of the Pharisees when it says Hebrew, because they were the ones that denied him, not those guys. And so I think it was just I think it was awesome the way it was directed right at them, because of that, again, the time frame. So I don't know why people get mad about that. That's definitely not Hebrew. It shouldn't be Hebrew because Jesus spoke Aramaic. First of all, Jesus can speak whatever he wants. I think that gets missing a little bit, you know. Yeah, I don't know why people want it to be Aramaic so much. Just studying that time frame, studying the language, the predominant languages of that time frame as well. Yeah, it's really important to understand why. And Greek, Latin, and Hebrew / Aramaic would have been the predominant languages. So number one, they're not only they predominantly in that area. Again, you have different levels of Latin. You got Vulgar Latin. You have the Aramaic, which is of the lower, but they could speak Greek as well because that was used in trading as well, administrative. I'm going on and on now. I'm sorry, but yeah. So I think it's a Hebrew. Putting Hebrew is correct because who betrayed him? The Pharisees. Well, I mean, Judas Iscariot, but whatever. But I'm saying Pharisees want him dead. They're the ones who want to put him up on that cross and crucified. They spoke mostly Hebrew among themselves, the priest. It's kind of like when you go to Catholic masses and they speak only Latin because they're above you. They're above you. Now, the Latin Church, the Latin Roman Catholic Church doesn't speak vulgar Latin. They speak ecclesiastical classical Latin. I mean, they're still doing it today. They're still being better than you. They think they're higher up on the chain. Little do they know, they're going to hell. Or Hades, or Sheol, however we want to put it. But hell, that might open up a can of worms as well. But yeah, so I don't know if I went too long on that one. Sorry about that one. But, you know, it's just, I think it's these things that we get caught up in. I don't understand why it's an issue. It's pretty clear as day. And yeah, I'll always be King James. Again, when you open up the King James and you read it cover to cover, especially after coming from NIV, realizing something so powerful as the King James Bible. I'm not going to get into discussions that you can be saved with any Bible. Now, here's my argument that I never hear. You didn't get saved by any Bible. You got saved because there was something inside of you. You were longing for something. You were already searching. The NIV didn't bring you to God. You were already searching. NIV might have been the Bible, and you found some of the stuff in there. But I find a lot of people who truly search usually end up away from that. Those who want to over-search and become more scholarly, then they start getting off into the weeds of different things, and they want more. They want more knowledge, and that is not biblical. But there's a certain amount of knowledge that is a good thing, and it's okay to have. But when we start pumping so much different knowledge into ourselves that we now can't differentiate things, or even brings doubt in our hearts, or, oh, well, I don't know, what about this and what about that? And then you're no longer relying on the Bible. You're no longer sola scriptura. In my opinion, you've now become commentary. You've become a commentary only. You become, a side whatever, videos or whatever. And you're no longer, in the Bible or searching to be in the Bible. You may have started there, but when you go that way, I just think that becomes an issue at that point. Just me. It's kind of like the whole Christmas thing. I won't bring it up again. But yeah, that book will be out next Christmas. I'm going to have that book out. I will definitely, I shouldn't say definitely. Anything can happen from that now to then, but restarted that, and we'll get that out there. I was talking about that earlier, but all right. So I was pretty long-winded on that one. The Aramaic and Hebrew. I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are, Brother Jorge, Chris. By design, I don't know if you're still here or not, but I love everybody being here. But it was fun to have by design because it really talk about those shows. It's now making me want to put a whole thing together, and by design, you'd be the reason why I'm doing that, because I think it's maybe needs to be attacked more from that angle than ever before. So I was saved through the preaching of a modern version, and I was ignorant of the entire modern version debate for over 2 decades before learning about and then studying the issue and coming to a conclusion. Well, I think your heart was already in that direction. I think you were heading in that direction. I think you were searching for that. In my opinion, I think there was a longing and a desire inside of you at that point, and that's where you were, and that's what you got saved on. I got saved, if you want to say NIV, I got saved from NIV, but I didn't get saved from an NIV. The Lord saved me, but it was not wanting to be where I was anymore. And I knew God was the way. I didn't know, all, like you said, the debates. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know the missing stuff. I knew what the answer was. It was after that a lot of bad discipleship, about a lot of just stuff made no sense. A lot of just ramblings from pastors, and I'll say pastors because up north we call them pastors. Down here it seems to be more preachers. But I fell and I backslid because I got angry. I just didn't get it all. None of it made sense. It's like it made sense as a kid growing up, right? Because I wasn't saved at 5 years old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. Everything was fine, no big deal. But when I changed, when I became born again, became saved, then somehow it's like you're seeing things differently at that point in time, and what you thought made sense before growing up, it doesn't make sense anymore, and you get confused. And unfortunately, I did backslide with no proper discipleship, and had a bad run for a little while there, and got back. So I mean, you can make an argument for the once saved, always saved thing. I look at it a different way, but yeah. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. Like Brother Calvin said, I just read it and believe. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. TV shows, 1960s, dumbing down. I'll make that note right there. Yeah, that's what I got to say about that. Yeah, I was bummed that I couldn't get I couldn't work this week, but that's all right. I got next week. What are you gonna do? Oh Lordy, it's 2 hours in. Anybody else got anything? Let's go. Any other rabbit trail we can go down, because that was fun. But well, there's a saying that I usually say sometimes. I don't know if that was the grammatical errors in that last statement or not, but when I talk about the last days, I feel like, I've said this before, we're at supper time in the last days, and that's how close I feel. I'm not putting dates on things. I'm just saying that's where I'm at, and that's where I think we are. We're rather close, but I know many generations have said the same thing. Oh, we're right around the corner. We're right there. We're right there. I think we should kind of, in a weird way, live like that. I think I've spoken about this before. I know I've had this conversation with Brother Jorge, and I've said before, I live my life as if we have no tomorrow. We will have tomorrow, but I live as if we have 20. You know what I mean? So I think that's the problem we have in the world. A lot of Christians are like, we got plenty of time. Well, I think that's a bad approach, because if you're basing your walk with the Lord on what time you think you have, I think that's the incorrect way of looking at it. You should, and like Paul, I mean, it's imminent. The time is near. The time is now. It's right here. And I think that's a problem, because you're going to get caught blindsided. One was in the field and one wasn't. So one was grinding, one wasn't. So, you're going to be caught off guard because you're not going to be living in the proper time frame. You're not going to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. We're all trying to pick dates and when it's going to happen, when the rapture, when the catching away is, when it's going to be around, and less trying to live as biblically as we possibly can. And all of us, well, I won't say all of us, but I'll definitely speak for me. I'm not perfect, and we are sinners, and that's not an excuse to sin. It just as an acknowledgement that you're always going to be a sinner. So I think that's a problem I have a little bit with a lot of free grace folks that I've heard so far is, hey, we can sin. It's not a big deal. God knows. And that's how I grew up. I grew up the same way in a Pentecostal church. I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. God knows you're not perfect. God knows you're going to sin. God knows this. God knows that. But never really saying, hey, you should try hard not to do these things. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 5, King James Bible. But watch thou in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry. You got to be on every day. The chapter in general is good. You're absolutely correct. Amen. But you got to be living every day. You can't just be assuming that, when it's going to be. Well, I think it's 2030, so I'll be ready in 2030. Here's a problem. I think in my opinion, some people don't really pay attention to. I'm like, your end could be tomorrow. Endure to the end. Well, your endure could be tomorrow. A person can die of a heart attack. They can die of anything. It doesn't have to be the catching away and looking for the signs. You could be passing away tomorrow. And I'm not saying you. I'm just saying in general in life, you don't know what your timetable is. You don't know when your death is. So what happens then? You weren't living for God. You died in sin and willful sin. Not a sinner, biblically speaking, but a willful sinner, not caring, and you're just going to repent, and you got it all planned out in the time frame it's going to happen. I'll wait till my deathbed. Give me a break. If someone says they're going to wait till a deathbed, I don't think they'll even do it then, to be honest with you. I just don't. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think I was talking to a Catholic one time that I worked with, and he thought, well, God changed you. If he wants to change me, he'll save me when he's ready. That's not how it works. And he misunderstood the whole thing. I believe the affluency in general in the West causes many to say we have plenty of time because we are not being persecuted like those in other countries. I don't know if it's on a conscious level or subconscious level, but absolutely I see that playing into it. Nobody's being persecuted. Nobody's being attacked. I've talked about this in the past. I made a comment about Paul. Paul was in prison, and we stub our foot, and we think we have a bad day. I'm like, we have not been through. I mean, I've been in jail, but I've not been in Paul's type of jail in his situation. When I was a young man, I got, like I said, when I fell off the wagon, I backslid pretty hard. But yeah, I'm like, we people don't know. It's like my wife. I don't know if this is an old saying, but I say it on purpose because it gets my wife every time. I say, I'm starving to death. And then she'll say to me, you have no idea what starving to death is. And she's absolutely right. But I say it because I'm such a good husband. I like to, needle her. My wife's a wonderful woman. She does have an amazing patience for my what she calls shenanigans, my shenanigans. But we don't know. We have no idea. We don't have the first clue in general what's going on. I mean, are we seeing more and more things happening out there in the last few years? Yeah, we're seeing more attacks here and there. Absolutely. But and I'm talking about here in America, but as a whole, yeah, we don't know. We don't. Yeah, I can't say any more better. I can't say it any more eloquently than Calvin has said it here. We haven't seen that affliction, and even those who think they have it bad, they still don't. Because even those who have a bad have the access to good. There are places that don't, so. Yeah. He's persecuted in jail for preaching. And yes, I know the people are in today's world, the same thing happening. And if it happens to me, then so be it. I've had that conversation, I think, once or twice with my sons that, hey, one day dad could be attacked. Who knows out there? That's why I won't bring them out to hand out gospel tracts, like hand them out in a park or anything. You don't know what's going to happen. But I do bring them, and we do the mailboxes, and they'll put them in the mailboxes. So I just, because I think it's very important not to put your family at risk. You put yourself at risk, that's fine. But you don't put your wife and children at risk. That doesn't, to me, that doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know. That's where I am with that. But we're maybe we'll know what it's like at some point, but it ain't now. We don't know now. And there are people out there, which I find fascinating too. Catholics are usually that way, but I think Baptists are as well. Pentecostals, I don't think will be martyrs. I think they'll try to speak in tongues and try to get their way out of it. There's a martyrdom complex. People want to be martyrs, and that's not what makes a martyr at all. I was just looking up for the martyr book, Fox's Book of Martyrs. Which reminds me, I'm supposed to. I don't have the original one anymore. I have the other one, so I really got to get the original one, which is bigger. But there's this idea that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to die for God. They want to be in a situation where they do. I don't want to die. I don't want to be a martyr, but I will be. I think there's a different martyrs are martyrs not because they wanted to be a martyr. They were in a situation where they became a martyr because they were going to stand on the word of God. They weren't going to back down. They weren't going out of their way and going, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go get myself caught and I'm going to be a martyr. Yeah. So my name will go down in history. No, that's not how that works. These were not men who were just chomping at the bit to be a martyr, but I believe they knew that there was a possibility that they could die for their beliefs. And they were fine with that. They were fine with that, but they weren't trying to seek out the chance to die. And that's what I see with Catholics a lot, that they'll be a martyr. There's a lot of guys out there who say they'll do certain things, and I'm like, well, I wish you well on that, because I don't believe that what makes a martyr someone who wants to be. Usually your leaders, too, are well known to be men who didn't want to be leaders in the first place. They end up being better leaders because they didn't seek the office. David didn't want to be king, right? And that was a good, humble quality to have. One of his brothers, I think, did. But King Saul was corrupted by power. He wanted to be in a powerful position. He wanted to be looked upon. He wanted to be remembered instead of God. So, all right, went sidetracked on that one again. I enjoyed the conversation, but I know that I wanted to try my best to end this sooner this evening, because I want to try to get up early tomorrow morning. We want to try to get the gospel booklets and the gospel tracts. Again, Two Deaf Brothers sent us a box of tracts. I'm still grateful for that. That's going in a couple of bags as well. So we're gonna, because the weather is good right now. The weather is just real nice to be driving around and hitting those mailboxes. So we'll be doing that tomorrow morning. We have a lot of other things to do tomorrow morning, but yeah, that's definitely on the docket for tomorrow. And that's it. And I think I talked about legacy before. I was going to do a sermon. My wife likes to call some of the ones I do on Sundays sermon. I just call them messages, because I don't want to feel like people think I'm trying to be some sort of preacher or teacher or anything like that, because we're just all brothers and sisters as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I was going to talk about legacy we talked about it briefly in a live stream, but I was going to do a sermon message thing. what is the legacy I'm leaving my kids? And I think that's the important thing, is getting these gospel tracts in the mailboxes and having them with me. That's teaching them to be out there and knowing what our responsibility as men. They're not men yet, but responsibility as men is to be out there to the best of our abilities to get the message out there. So that's a legacy one wants to leave. If legacy I can, I'll tell you what, if I die and my kids if they remember that I just did the best I could for God and just was pushed the gospel and pushed the scriptures out there as much as I possibly could, and lived what I said. I walk the walk, talk the talk, walk the talk. Now that's the important thing to me, because that's the next generation. We forget the young people. We don't seem to care. We just want to, yeah, young people, whatever. Well, it's important because unfortunately some young people think they know more than they do, unfortunately. You see a lot of that on YouTube, but they don't. And that's the unfortunate part. Okay, I can go on and on about that, but I tried. It was 2.5 hours in tonight, and because we have everything going on tomorrow morning, is why I wanted to try to. I never thought about it till now. Do you think the reason Jesus spent 40 days after the resurrection with disciples could be because they needed the extra bit of proof to die for him? That's an interesting concept. I've never looked at that before like that. I'm not saying it's not right. I've never looked at it from that angle. Never thought about that. I think the reason Jesus spent 40 days after the resurrection, disciples could be because they need that extra bit of proof to die for him. Well, Thomas needed it. We all know that. Yeah, I think if you look at the aftermath of that, I think people kind of, went back to doing certain things and just kind of like, oh, he's gone. Even those who believe he's a Messiah started to wonder. So they weren't fully convinced, maybe, but a lot of these guys went right back to work, by the way. They went right back, and the scriptures back that up. Right after the resurrection, they were back working. So, and they still work, even after the ascension, they were still working. So, but they don't have to work. They're the apostles, as far as I'm concerned. We're not the apostles. No matter what Greg Locke or whatever, all those NAR people say. But that's pretty good. That's an interesting. That's something that's a good study to put. That's definitely a good study. I never thought about it. I never really looked at it like that way before. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, I'm going to shut it down because I really do want to try to get to bed early so I can get up early. This will be the earliest I've been in bed in a while because I'm usually in bed after midnight every night and getting up at 6:30 in the morning. I'm not saying poor pitiful me. I'm just saying I need to get more sleep. You go 7 days a week doing this. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, thank you, man, guys. I've appreciated the time as always, man. I've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching that Westcott and Hort video, Brother Calvin. Appreciate it. I wish I can get more people to like it or whatever. Hit the like button and stuff like that, because I just really think it's really important to be out there. I think it's important information, but what are you gonna do? It'll fall on the ears it needs to fall on. So, all right. With that, I will also back you up on that one. God bless, and y'all have a beautiful week. If I don't talk to any of you again until next week, have an awesome week and just keep walking. Just keep walking. With that, awkwardly hitting the hang up buttons here. God bless and have a beautiful week.